Welcome to MMA Court, everybody. It's been a long time coming. I've been planning on doing this for so long, and I'm extremely excited for the fact that I finally got all this stuff set up. I got my ridiculous outfit on because today I am your host, I am the judge, and this is MMA Court. We're going to discuss all kinds of fun topics when it comes to mixed martial arts on the daily. It's pretty much stuff that's going on every day. We got stuff with people that are trolling fighters. We got stuff that's going on with controversies with the UFC. We got upcoming fights. We got matchmaking, which is always my favorite. But right now, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the main event for UFC 271, which is Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya. There's many different ways that you can pronounce his name. So there's a lot of things that are going on in the MMA world right now when it comes to insulting fighters. And I'm not a fighter. I will never be a fighter because I, quite frankly, don't have the balls to become a fighter. I do plan on actually becoming a real MMA judge because I think these fighters deserve someone judging their fights who is genuinely in love with the sport and in love with the fact with what these people do, both men and women in this sport. So I want to talk about Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker, the rematch. So it's number 2. A lot of people seem to always go back to the fact that someone won the first fight, okay? And that's something that happens all the time. And I'm really confused as to why that is because you got to think that this was 2.5 years ago, all right? And the thing that I always like to go by is you're only good as your last performance. Yes, that's good, but also it's not at the same time. And I'll explain why. The reason why I don't like to go by the last performance every single time is because there's always different factors going into every single performance. And that's why I like calling it a performance and not just a fight, because that's what it is. It is a performance that these amazing athletes are putting on for us fans, myself included. But the crazy thing about it is the amount of people, trolls, that are talking shit about Robert Whittaker genuinely makes me sick. Every single post that I see is, Israel, knockout round 1. You know what I mean? Bobby Knuckles is a bum. Robert Whittaker shouldn't even be in this fight. This is ridiculous. Why are they even having a rematch? We know what's going to happen. Well, that's just a stupid thing to say because if you actually scale back a little bit in time, just a little bit, before Israel Adesanya was even in the UFC, let alone the champion of the middleweight division, you need to really scale back a little bit further. And let's talk about Robert Whittaker for 1 second. Why is it that this guy does not get the respect that he deserves? Is just beyond me. It kind of makes me sick every time I see stuff like this. Because can any one of these stupid ass trolls answer just the one question? How many fights at middleweight did Robert Whittaker lose before he fought Israel Adesanya? 0. He lost none. He lost no fights at middleweight. He lost a couple at welterweight, but he was killing himself to get down there. He is one of the prime examples of what cutting weight can do to someone's performance. And also, you got to think about Robert Whittaker was much younger when he was fighting at welterweight. He wasn't as well-rounded as he is now, and the improvements that we've seen in Robert Whittaker just from the loss to Israel to now in his last 3 fights, I mean, it's something truly spectacular and commendable. I mean, you look at how he fought against Darren Till. Darren Till is a power puncher. I know a lot of people have a lot of terrible things to say about Darren Till because of the hype that was going on before the fight when he fought Tyron Woodley for the welterweight belt. A lot of people just have no faith in Darren Till anymore. I have a lot of faith in Darren Till. I think that guy's left hand is something absolutely spectacular because when he lands it on people, he does some serious damage, even at middleweight. I mean, the guy is a very good fighter. He's a true contender, but Robert Whittaker picked him apart. I mean, a lot of people called it boring, but it was a real chess match. When you watch that performance, it was truly incredible to see Robert Whittaker do that to Darren Till, who is a very, very, very good striker. A lot of people don't give Darren Till enough credit. Robert Whittaker pretty much pieced him up and really did everything that needed to be done to completely nullify the striking of Darren Till, which is very impressive. Do I think Darren Till's striking is as technical and on point as Israel Adesanya? Probably not, because Israel Adesanya, I mean, let's be real here. The guy is one of the greatest kickboxers on the planet, especially at his weight class, and right now he is the best middleweight in the world, plain and simple. In any organization, any promotion, Israel Adesanya is the best. He is the reigning champ right now. But the only one standing in his way is the previous champ, Robert Whittaker. After what he did to Darren Till, a lot of people were like, oh, okay, it looked pretty good. And then you take it a little bit further and you saw what he did to Jared Cannonier. Jared Cannonier was the one that Israel Adesanya was talking about is going to be the next guy that he's going to fight. Obviously, Robert Whittaker had some different plans and completely destroyed that whole thing. And I love Jared Cannonier, but Robert Whittaker destroyed him in that fight. It was unbelievable, the performance that man put on. And the toughness of Jared Cannonier is absolutely unreal. What that guy did in that fight against Robert Whittaker, I mean, Jesus Christ, I think it was in the first round. I think he broke his arm or something like that, and he just kept on coming. But Robert Whittaker almost finished him. It was very impressive. You take it a step further, you look at the next fight against Kelvin Gastelum, arguably one of the only people outside of Jan Blachowicz that really put Israel Adesanya in serious, serious danger in mixed martial arts. Obviously, we can't talk about kickboxing. It's a totally different story. But as far as the fights in the UFC, Kelvin Gastelum has been the only person to actually put Israel in severe danger and actually made him face adversity. One of the best middleweight fights I've ever seen was for that interim bout between Kelvin and Israel Adesanya. And obviously that was supposed to be Kelvin versus Robert Whittaker, which we didn't get for the belt, but we got it a little bit down the road. And we saw what Robert Whittaker did to Kelvin. A lot of people have a lot of shit to talk about Kelvin too. I think the guy is absolutely unbelievable. I personally believe that he should be at 170, but even at 185, I mean, the guy is just such a good fighter. And to watch what Robert Whittaker did to him, and Kelvin's a very accomplished wrestler, and Robert Whittaker was taking him down and beating him up. I mean, it was a very, very, very impressive performance. Now let's look at Israel Adesanya. Now, since he beat Robert Whittaker, the guy has been demolishing everybody. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about the Yoel Romero fight, myself included. I wasn't a big fan. Even Israel wasn't a big fan of that fight. I mean, let's be honest here. It was rough. It was a little bit painful and everything like that. And Yoel seems to have been on the tail end of his career with that whole thing. But then you look at what Israel Adesanya did to Paulo Costa. I mean, come on. There was a lot of people that thought that he was going to pretty much run him down, keep him up against the fence, and really pressure Israel. And we didn't see that happen at all. All we saw was a very bizarre performance from Paulo Costa, and we saw Israel Adesanya literally dismantle him from the legs up and then humped him afterwards. I mean, Jesus Christ. When you look at something like that and that kind of performance against a guy who was undefeated, okay, who walked down Yoel Romero, and when Yoel Romero was, in my opinion, still, not in his prime, but better off than he is right now. It is extremely impressive what Israel has done. And then a lot of people were counting him out when he moved up to fight Jan Blachowicz for the light heavyweight belt. And we saw something, I don't want to say that was something that everyone knew was going to happen, but once the wrestling started, it seemed pretty apparent the size difference was really there. And Jan was just much bigger than Israel, And then when he was getting them with the takedown, you got to realize Jan fought a very good fight. He secured the takedown right in the middle of the octagon, and Israel really couldn't get to the fence to actually stand up. And when you have a guy that's that big on top of you, it's extremely difficult to get out of something like that. And Israel looked fantastic in that fight. You can't say he looked bad. I mean, if you even listen, a lot of people say the commentary was biased, but if you listen to the commentary that was going on, it seemed like Israel was winning the whole fight almost. Clearly, we know that wasn't the case because Jan Blachowicz ended up winning. Did that stop Israel? No, because right after that, he fought Marvin Vettori, a guy who put up a very, very good fight, and I believe it was the second fight of Israel Adesanya's UFC career, not his MMA career. A lot of people thought that Marvin was going to do very well. I was one of them. I thought he was going to do well. I didn't think he was going to win, but I thought he was going to do very, very well. And Israel looked amazing. The best part of the whole fight is when Marvin got him down and took his back. Everyone was like, oh my God, me included. I was like, holy crap, this might be it. He might get him. And then Israel just reverses it. And then he's in his guard. I was like, what just happened? How did that just happen? That was incredible. The guy's ground game is there. It's just we haven't really had a chance to see it. He's very, very hard to take down. You got to look at who he's fought. He fought Derek Brunson. Derek Brunson's wrestling is unbelievable. Granted, now I think it's a little bit better, and that's for another video because Derek Brunson's supposed to be fighting Jared Cannonier, which clearly is Depends on who wins the championship, but it's probably going to determine who the next title contender is going to be. But if you go to the performance of Israel, he's won his last 2 out of 3. Robert Whittaker's won his last 3 out of 3. So, people would say like, oh, Robert's look better. No matter how you look at this fight, I think that their skills are so closely matched, more than people give Robert Whittaker credit for. A lot of people think he's going to get demolished. I just don't see that. Not taking anything away from Israel, because I think this fight's going to be amazing. This is why I don't really like to pick fights on who's going to win here or anything like that. That's not what this is for. That's not what this channel is for. It's here to talk about the fights, go in depth with the fight, and see what is really going on in the MMA world right now. That's why it's called MMA Court, because I like to make funny decisions and everything like that, and I like to do funny gimmicks like this. I mean, let's be real here. I'm just some bald idiot in a judge costume with a gavel, and I'm talking about mixed martial arts. I mean, it doesn't get more crazy than this. But one thing I will say is this. If anyone thinks that Robert Whittaker is a bum or doesn't deserve to be in this fight, they really should just stop watching mixed martial arts, because they clearly have no idea what they're talking about. And Israel is right now, without a doubt, probably one of the best middleweights on the planet in any promotion. And Robert Whittaker is the only threat to that right now, the only one. You got to give this guy credit, and give credit where credit's due to any fighter. That we are about to see one hell of a main event on Saturday night. It is going to be absolutely incredible. We got a great co-main event coming up on UFC 271, which is supposed to be Derek Lewis and Tai Tuavasa. I don't even have to make a video on that, because let's be real, if that doesn't end in the first round, I'm going to be stunned. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm really looking forward to it. But stay tuned, because we got a lot of great content coming out. We're going to be doing all kinds of things on here. We're going to be doing fight interviews. We're going to do different video series, the trolls versus the fighters, the UFC versus the fighters, the judge versus the UFC, the judge versus the trolls, the casuals versus a fighter. We got all different kinds of fun stuff coming on here, and we're going to have fighter interviews. So stay tuned. Please subscribe, like, share, comment. Let me know what you want to see. Let me know if I look like an idiot. And let me know if you have any opinions on the fight. Who do you think is going to win? Tell me, is it going to be Whittaker or is it going to be Israel? Is he going to keep it? And then, I don't know, why don't you comment on the video and let me know, if so-and-so wins, what do you think is next for them? Or if so-and-so loses, what do you think is next for them? After all is said and done, the only thing I got to say is, do not count Robert Whittaker out of this. That's all I have to say. Case closed.